Well, hello there, this is Tamil, and today I wanted to talk about Fill Tool and Clip Studio Paint. The written article is in the description, and let's just get started. To use Fill Tool, it's pretty simple. You can find the bucket icon in the left corner. If you can't find it, you can just click G, and G is also for gradient. And the main tools that we will need to use today is the subtool and tool property. If you don't see them, you can go into the window, subtool, tool property. If you've never used a bucket tool before, or you don't know what it is, basically it's going to fill in whatever the color you have chosen, and you click an enclosed area like this, and it's going to color in the inside, which helps to save time instead of going with the brush and trying to select things. But there's few caveats and things that come up. It really becomes hard for the fill tool to know how to color it and things like that. And that is why there are multiple tools, like right here, that you can use in order to improve the filling options. And the main function that you're going to be using is tolerance. Tolerance is basically a sensitivity slider. And if you've never used it before, you don't know what it is, basically you can make a gradient, and I made a gradient from black to white. And if you have tolerance to about 15, if you click here, now you can see it colored this portion. If you make it bigger, so for example 40, it's going to color more of that portion. And if you really want to just affect just this part, the outside for example, and all of this, and separate the gradient, you can set it to 0, set it to any color you need, click on it, and there you go. Now this whole thing is very, very crisp, and it's not going to be affecting the gradient. So if you really need to change only one specific color, then reduce the tolerance. If you want to do a more like a gradual thing, then you can just increase the tolerance. Another thing is anti-aliasing for the fill tool. If you've never done it before, if you don't know what anti-aliasing is, you practically just have a crisper or more transitional coloring. So for example, if I do very high and very small for a brush, you can see the difference. So this is no anti-aliasing, this is a lot. And for the fill tool, it's the same pretty much concept. And if you want to get crispier fills, then I would turn it off. And in this example, I can show you that if you turn it off, it's going to have no transition whatsoever, and it's just going to give you like this specific color. But if you do it, have it on, and you click on it, you can see it has one layer, like one small pixel line that is in between the black and the color that I chose, and it's trying to just blend it in just a little bit. And in most cases you're not going to see it, but I prefer sometimes crispier fills, so I turn it off. But if I have a texture brush, so for example something like this that is somewhat transparent and things like that, then I have it on so that it blends in a little bit better. Another simple thing is opacity. I don't really use this a lot because I can just adjust the layer opacity instead of fill, but if you're into this sort of thing, you can see that opacity of 50, and now I move this and you can see that it's transparent. Otherwise, if you have it at 100 and you fill in and you move it, it's going to cover the entire thing. And that is the difference for the opacity. Another great feature that I really love is that in most cases, when you do line or sketching, not a lot of times you can't get this crisp line, right? So in here, you can see that I have 0 gaps. Like there's no gap here, there's no gap here. It's all enclosed, which makes it easy for the fill tool to decide where to color in the thing. But sometimes you have small gaps here and there, and you can't even find them because there's so many details and things like that. And that is why we have close gap feature. And close gap feature works pretty easy. Smaller will be less sensitive and more will be more sensitive. And I created a mask for my cupcake and I'm going to create small things that are going to be missing in this piece on purpose to see if the feature is going to work. And we chose the gradient and we create a new layer, and the close gap is very small, so we click and you can see it comes out of the thing. But if you go all the way up and you click, it still comes out, right? It's a little bit not enough. And here's the part that I want you to remember. If you click the arrow, you can see the max is 20. But actually, if you type in a number, the real max for this is 50. And if you click here, boom, now you have everything enclosed. And after this, if you don't like this, you can go ahead and try to fix it like this. And it takes some time, you know, depending on the canvas or depending on the thing that you're painting, but it's definitely way faster than sitting there with a simple brush and coloring in everything manually. Another thing that I want to talk about is area scaling. And area scaling is pretty easy example to show because it happens in a lot of programs these days, and I'm still kind of upset that most of industry standard has this problem. But here's for example, a shape, and I want to draw, for example, a flag, for example, right? And I want to color in the inside of this. And I go into gradient or bucket tool, and let's just turn off the area scaling. And you click, and as you can see, it fills in most of it, but there's a small pixel line that is still gaps. It's just empty. There's nothing in there. That's, again, if you do anti-aliasing, even that doesn't fix it. It gets even sharper. Sometimes it's really annoying, and I will show you how to fix it if you don't have Clip Studio Paint. Just pick a auto select tool and you select it, and what you want to do after select, you want to expand it 5 pixels, you click OK, and now when you fill, now there's nothing that is in between those things, like between the color and the fill. And you know, it's pretty easy to do. It's a little bit time consuming, and in most cases I actually have it set up for quick access or action, so I don't have to do it every single time in other programs. But in Clip Studio Paint, the cool thing is it's included and it does for you automatically. For area scaling, as you can see, I can make a new layer, put it behind, and let's pick this turquoise color, and area scaling is at 0 for now, and I click, and there's still some gap in there. So let's pick actually a black so that it's easier to see. Yeah, there's still some gap in between. But if area scaling is, for example, for 10 or 9, you can click here and it fills in pretty much most of it. And if you click on the flag and you reduce to opacity, you can see that actually it goes above and beyond. Like there's like a little gap. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it on my monitor. There's like a little gap that it goes overboard just to make sure that everything works. And that is what the 9 pixels are. If you do 20, so for example, let's make a new layer, remove the old one, do 20. Now you can see that it's actually giving even more of a safe net right here. So it goes even above and beyond. Something like this to keep in mind, area scaling, I usually just keep it at like 5, but it depends on the type of brush you use again. If it's crisp, you know, good brush, ink, it's pretty, you don't need to do 20 or whatever, you can keep it at 5. But if I'm doing something like this, and you can see that there's some transparency, I would put it up and like kick it up a notch, maybe 15 or 20, depending on the, you know, you want to play around with this. Again, all the tools are there for you, but you also want to adjust them accordingly to your painting or your canvas. This is an important one. Refer multiple. If you can see, there's right here like a little thing that says refer multiple, and that is the main thing that you want to keep in mind when you're going to be having a complicated piece. Whatever you have it on, you know, it says all layers, which means all of the layers that are on right now. So whatever you see right now is what the fill tool sees. So if I remove this, if I remove the cupcake and I fill in, it's going to fill in everything. But if I have the cupcake on, it's going to fill in around that cupcake. And so this is all layers. Whatever is visible, it's going to use that. But if you, for example, have a complicated line structure in layers or whatever it might be, sometimes you can use extra things that are going to help you to narrow down specific things in the fill. So for example, I have this like fireworks. So let's call this folder fireworks. fireworks. And this one is cupcake. And the cupcake layer is separate from the fireworks. And I want to color in, but I know that I want to color in behind that. Like I don't want the color to fill in behind the fireworks. I know it sounds complicated, but basically if I click here and I've removed the fireworks, you see this, you know? I don't want that. So let's remove this. Let's take it back with the color. And in here, you can select reference layer, which is the cool thing. So reference layer, if I click here and I click reference, now this entire folder is a reference layer, which means the bucket tool will only look at this. So right now, bucket tool only sees this. And once that happens, I click here, I click, it fills in, and as you can see, there's nothing here, which is pretty amazing. So reference layer, and now I can just turn it off, and that's it. Another thing, you can use selected layer, and this one is a little bit more, not as useful, but it still can be useful depending if you want to like work very fast and you want to just like make sure that, you know, things happen in your canvas and your artwork. So for example, if I have 3 lines like this and I create a box, right? And for example, I'm working on a brick wall or something like that. And now I want to make another one and I finish it up and things like that happen. And now I have these 2, but I want to only color in some of this. I don't want to color in the entire thing. And so that is why you can do selected layer. So if I do selected, I click this one, I shift, I click this one. Now this is the main one that it's going to fill, and this is the one that he's going to use to look at things. So if I click the bucket tool, I fill in. You see, it didn't take into the account these 2 because it's on a separate thing and I did not select it. Pretty easy to understand as well. And same goes for layer and folder. And it's a quick demonstration again. I have the cupcake, I have the fireworks. If I create a layer inside cupcake and I use the fill tool, now it's only going to look at this. So whatever is inside this folder, that's what it sees. Again, it's not seeing the fireworks. The fireworks are just there and it doesn't intrude with my coloring. Pretty easy and, you know, nifty little trick, you know. If you want, just use all layers. You can also, if you're really lazy and you don't feel like doing all of this, you can just, you know, refer to all layers and just hide whatever you need. Color in, you know, unhide. It's not, you know, it's either or. Either workflow, you know, works really good. It depends on whatever you're more comfortable with. But these like little shortcuts, they really help sometimes. Another thing is apply connected pixels only. There's very few instances when you actually need it, but I still think it's pretty awesome if you are going to use it. And I'll just create a simple square. So for example, let's create 4 squares and we color them in with this color. Usually what happens is that if you have the bucket tool and I want to create something else, like a different color, if I want to change all of these, and if you're doing flats for a character, flats for your comic book, you click in here, you click in here, you click in here, you click in here. You know, you fill in all these 4 and you have to click on each one separately. Another thing that you can do is you can lock transparency and then you fill it in. So if you do Alt backspace, now this entire layer was covered in yellow. And it's both ways is cool, but also you can use apply connected pixels only, which is the usual way, and you turn it off. And now if I click this one color, it's going to take into account all of these ones that are similar, and it's going to color in that specific square. So it doesn't care where on the canvas that color is, it just fills it in, which I think is pretty cool if you have like this big piece and you have like a lot of reds, but they're all separate and you want to just like color in the red with something else. Pretty useful, especially if you're working on like 1 layer or 2 layers, you don't want to like get complicated with your layers. This is pretty awesome. Another cool tool is Enclose and Fill. And it's pretty much almost the same thing as the bucket tool, but I really enjoy how it works and how it feels. And it's not like a huge function difference, but it definitely feels a little bit more more fun to use. And very simply, it's basically a lasso. Instead of you click where you want, you can just create a lasso, and now it's going to fill in that small area of whatever is inside the lasso. For example, if I have this cupcake and I want to do a flat, I can just do this entire thing, and boom, I colored in this cupcake. And then I create a new layer, and I want to make my, for example, sprinkles purple or pink. And now I can just go in here and I color it in. And as you can see, because of my textured brush, it also creates area scaling just in case. And so it has like little gaps like these. So if you like reduce the tolerance, you remove the close gap. So again, you just adjust the tool based on what you need. Now you can just create these, and it's going to be easier to fill in all of these things. And again, you can see that sometimes it doesn't work as well because I'm using this textured transparent brush. If you're using something more inky, maybe you're going to have a better time with it. And if I want just the top of this little cupcake, because you can see there's closed line right here, I can just do this, and boom, it just colored in the top part. But if I have a bucket tool, then I have to click each one separately, then I have to click here, click here, click here. While Enclose and Fill, it's working a lot faster. You just create a lasso, just make sure that you grab a little bit more than you need, and then it just does the job. And then after that, you can just go ahead and do a cleanup pass. It's not a big deal. So for example, this part is not needed, and that's it. Paint Unfilled area is something that I also like, because it's basically a brush that is going to fill in the small things that your bucket tool or fill tool haven't gotten to yet. And it really depends on which one you prefer better. For example, I can just do these like small sloppy lines, and it's going to color in whatever I need. And instead of doing the Enclosed and Fill or refer to other, I can just do these, and it's going to fill in whatever I need. And also it's really great for like small areas like these, because you're not sure how to color those. I really like it. It's like a third option that you can have. Pretty much similar functionality. It's not too different from the bucket tool, and all of the same things apply right here. Now, a little bit secret functions that probably nobody's going to use, but I still want to show you, is in the wrench. If you have refer other layers, in the wrench you can see all these options, and it really depends what you're looking for. But for example, for close gap, if it doesn't work as well, you can actually do this extra little thing. It's basically fill narrow areas. And it really depends on what kind of artwork you're doing. But basically, if you have something like this that is very small and insignificant, fill in narrow areas will try to get a little bit more in there and try to fill it in. Another cool thing is that you can use do not fill this color. So for example, if I have an entire canvas like this, and I don't want to fill a specific color, I just turn it on, and I can pick and choose. So for example, I don't want to fill in that specific black, and I just click here, click this black, and I click OK. And now it's not going to fill in anything when it comes to this specific color. And it depends on your workflow again. I haven't used it too much. I only used it once in my previous artwork, but I think it's really cool because I haven't seen this before in any other program. Another cool thing is that you can exclude certain things as well. So for example, if you have a reference on your canvas, like a portrait or whatever, you usually lock it. You like put the thing at the top and you lock the layer, right? Well, in here, you can actually exclude locked layers. So if you, for example, if I do the cupcake, right, and I lock it, I lock the entire folder, and now I create a new layer and I want to exclude locked now it's going to ignore this entire folder. And again, I think it's really, really cool that it gives you all these different options to tackle your things. And another thing, for example, it says exclude text layers. And if you're doing a comic and you have all these, lots of bubbles and words, you don't want to fill it in. You want to ignore it. Instead of like turning off each one, you can just go into here and say exclude text, and it's not going to be affected by the fill layer. And that is about it, I think, for this video. I'll probably have like a little time lapse at the end for this cupcake, because I don't want to take too long for this. I think this tutorial is already too long for this like such simple tool, but there's so many cool features. If you look into it, I think it's really awesome that Clip Studio Paint has all these options available. Because compared to other software, honestly, like this fill tool is like supreme for me personally. I know, for example, Photoshop has some advanced editing or has Liquify for like a long time. We only got Liquify recently, but for the fill tool, I don't have a single, complaint about fill tool for Clip Studio Paint. It works so much better than anything else out there, honestly. So I really hope that you learned something, and let me know if you have any questions. I usually try to answer them if I have any idea how to. And yeah, happy painting, and have a wonderful rest of your week or day or whatever it might be. So thank you. Subscribe, like, comment, cupcake.